We'll be getting started in just a moment. If everyone can please put their name, organization, if you have one, and city or state in the chat. And we will be getting started very, very shortly because we want to keep this session to an hour. And actually it's 7:01 and the recording is on. Let me just take a look real quick as to who is here in the room. Jahi, Zizwe, Gretchen, Roger, Connor, Sipiwe. Okay, greetings. Welcome, everyone. For those who don't know, I am Nikichi Taifa, the Executive Director of the Reparation Education Project. And we just want to start by just taking a deep breath and calling on the spirits of our ancestors, because without them, we would not be here today. So we welcome their presence and we ask them to be with us as we go through today's proceedings. And in light of that, I start all of our sessions with principles of engagement, which I would do at this time. And they are simply to respect each other in language and action, to listen with an open mind, to criticize the problem, not the person, to ask, to clear up unclarity, to assume the best intent of others, and the one I love the best, to contribute out of love, to contribute out of love. So, before we start, Baba Yao, engineer, can you put on, we have two very short videos, and I'm going to make a opening statement, and then I'm going to turn it over to some of my esteemed colleagues who were there and present in Accra, Ghana, as part of the high-level next steps convening to the March 25th UN Declaration that the transatlantic trafficking in human beings and racialized chattel enslavement was the gravest crime against humanity, with 123 nations voting in support, 52 nations abstaining, and only 3 nations voting no. So, Baba Yao, if you can put on the first video, the very short videos. These are from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the screen is one of these small screens, so just bear with us. Let's let it roll.
We welcome you to this 2-day high-level consultative conference on the next steps to the landmark United Nations resolution on the trafficking of enslaved Africans, called at the instance of the government of Ghana, together with the African Union and UNESCO.
His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, and African Union Champion of Reparatory Justice, to Accra for this defining high-level next steps conference on reparatory justice.
Wash away all the tears from my eyes. In times when the stars and the times are raging high, we know we shall win, yeah. We know we'll survive, yeah.
That's what I'm saying, girl. So it's something going on there. When I tried to call them, they phone just you know how it seems like somebody answers, but they're hanging up on you.
And governments in advancing dialogue on historical justice, including the message we just heard from President Emmanuel Macron. Such developments are significant because they demonstrate a willingness to engage with difficult truths and
Fred told me about this movie, so I'm looking at it.
Distinguished guests, one of the most important lessons from this history is that its consequences have never been confined to a single geographical region. The transatlantic slave trade connected continents through pain and suffering. It linked the shores of Africa to the Caribbean and to North and South America. and to communities across the world whose identities, cultures, and history were forever shaped by the...
And then the next very short video.
Pain,
From the
emotion,
Convening.
and history come alive at the Osu Castle in Accra. Students from the University of Ghana deliver a powerful performance, one that captures the anguish and resilience tied to the slave trade. The moment marks Juneteenth, the U.S. holiday that commemorates the emancipation of enslaved African Americans in 1865, when the last enslaved people were finally declared free. But here in Ghana, it's more than just a remembrance. It's a call to action. African and Caribbean leaders watched on, visibly moved, as they pushed for something bigger: apologies, reparations, and a more just future for Africans and people of African descent worldwide.
We know that development is repair. We know that opportunity is repair. We know that truth is repair. And to the young people of Africa and the Caribbean and the Americas who say, what does this have to do with me? I say to you, everything. For the debt of history is paid in the currency of your future. When the systems fail in our country, when, as I said, people cannot access electricity, when culture is stolen, when climate is denied, when finance becomes more expensive and more difficult to access. This is your inheritance that we are negotiating today.
The gathering comes just after Accra hosted the Next Steps Conference, an effort to build momentum following a landmark UN resolution in March that declared the slave trade the gravest crime against humanity. At the conference, leaders agreed to unify global campaigns pushing for reparations and justice.
So let this outcome document be the platform for how we forge ahead together in unity. The iniquities of the slave trade still remain, and the demographic that slavery affected is still the poorest part of this world. And so our work goes beyond reparations. It goes beyond return of artifacts. It goes into advocacy for creating a more equal world, to a world that offers opportunity to everyone, and to a world that is fair and just.
An estimated 12 million Africans were taken during the transatlantic slave trade from the 16th to the 19th century, forced into brutal conditions that build wealth for European nations. Today, scenes like this are not just about remembering the past. They are about pushing for change, correcting injustices, and building a better future for generations to come.
We welcome you to this two-day high-level consultative conference on the next steps to the landmark United Nations resolution on the trafficking of enslaved Africans, called at the instance of the government of Ghana, together with the African Union and UNESCO.
His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, and African Union Champion of Reparatory Justice, to Accra for this defining high-level Next Steps Conference on reparatory justice.
Shall wash away all the tears from my eyes. In times when the storms and the tides are raging high, yeah, we know we shall win, yeah, we know we'll survive, yeah. Shall wash.
We also welcome the growing engagement of national leaders and governments in advancing dialogue on historical justice, including the message we just heard from President Emmanuel Macron. Such developments are significant because they demonstrate a willingness to engage with difficult truths and to confront history honestly. Distinguished guests, one of the most important lessons from this history is that its consequences have never been confined to a single geographical region. The transatlantic slave trade connected continents through pain and suffering. It linked the shores of Africa to the Caribbean and to North and South America, and to communities across the world whose identities, cultures, and history were forever shaped by the
So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this community report back on the historic Next Steps convening on reparatory justice held June 17th through 19th in Accra, Ghana. As many of you or some of you know, prior to the convening, the Reparation Education Project, along with the National Black Cultural Information Trust, hosted an emergency community consultation to gather input from U.S.-based advocates, organizers, scholars, and community members on priority issue areas that should be reflected in a global reparatory justice framework. We did so because we believed that this moment was too important for our communities not to have a voice. And what a moment it was. Just a few months ago, as I said at the outset, March 25th, the United Nations General Assembly overwhelmingly adopted the resolution recognizing the trafficking and enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement as the gravest crime against humanity. And for many of us, that vote represented one of the most significant international developments in the reparations movement since the 2001 World Conference Against Racism in Durban, South Africa. The question then became, what comes next? The gathering in Accra was designed to begin answering that question. Over the course of 3 days, representatives of government, scholars, advocates, traditional leaders, legal experts, and members of civil society came together to move beyond recognition and to begin the work of implementation. The convening began on June 17th with experts and working groups focused on refining and strengthening the framework document that will help guide future reparatory justice efforts. It was an opportunity to wrestle with difficult questions, identify priorities, and think strategically about how to transform a historic declaration into meaningful action. On June 18th, we witnessed an extraordinary gathering of leaders and dignitaries as heads of state and representatives from across the African world offered remarks on the significance of this moment. There was also culture, music, and celebration, including a powerful performance by reggae artist Gramps Morgan, who debuted a new song on reparations, reminding us that this movement lives not only in policy documents and resolutions, but also in art, in spirit, and collective memory. And one of the highlights for many of us, in addition to the special presentation by Wole Soyinka, was the presence of Dr. Julius Garvey, the son of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. I need not even say anything more about just how meaningful it was for him to be as part of this gathering. And then there was the concluding ceremony at Oso Castle, some of which you saw in the film, a site that carries within its walls the painful memory of the trafficking of our ancestors. And for those who were in that space, while discussing reparatory justice and the future of African people worldwide, was both sobering and profoundly moving. It reminded us that the work of reparations is not merely political or economic. It is also spiritual. It's about memory. It's about truth. It's about honoring those who came before us and ensuring that our future generations inherit something different. So tonight's gathering, this community report back, is not intended to be a comprehensive report on every meeting, every presentation, or every recommendation that emerged from Accra. Rather, it is an opportunity to hear initial reflections from some of the U.S.-based participants who were present, to hear what they observed, what inspired them, what challenged them, what they agreed with, what they did not agree with, what they believe this moment means for the future of the reparations movement. For me, one of the clearest takeaways is this: the conversation has shifted. For generations, we as reparations advocates fought simply to have the harm acknowledged. Today, we are increasingly discussing frameworks, implementation, institutional mechanisms, and pathways toward repair. Y'all know, as you'll hear from the people who will speak after me, we still have a long way to go. No one should confuse a resolution with reparations. But neither should we underestimate the significance of this moment. And as we often say in the movement, recognition is not repair, but recognition can help create conditions for repair. And so tonight, I invite us to listen, to learn, to reflect, and to imagine together what comes next. Because the work continues, the struggle continues, our luta continua. And with that, I see some of the people on the line who were there, and I'm going to tell you the order. I'm just going to call the first three because I know that D12 has a meeting going on at this time. I know that Jahi Johnson, and I think her name was Deja, was there. Roger was not, but I see him in the house. So we're going to give folk about 5 minutes to share your reflection. Now I'm going to call on Dr. Akila Mukarim because I know that she has to leave. And then I'm going to call on Safiwe Balenka precisely because he's not in the United States, and I think he's 4 hours, and he's probably around midnight where he is. And next I'd like to call on Cheryl Grills, and then more. I even see State Senator James Sanders there, who was in the House, who spoke very eloquently at the convening as well. I see Gretchen Moore, and then more. So between Jahi, Deja, and Roger, give us your reflection. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the spotlight on you, so those who are on speaker view will be able to see you clearly. There you go. Take it away, Jahi. Tell us who you're representing in 5 minutes. And just to make sure we stay within our time, they didn't do this too well in Ghana, y'all. But, we want to keep it to an hour. So I'm going to ring this when we're getting close. Take it away.
All right. Well, it's actually two of us, myself and Deja. So do we got 2 minutes and 30 seconds each, or do we have 10 minutes?
No, you as one group, you have 5 minutes.
No, I'm just being funny. In fact, we do have a report back on Wednesday, so I think we could be relatively brief. And certainly I want to hear from some of the people who were in the meeting on that first day. So if we could afford more time to them, I would be interested to see what their report back is from that. But I'll say the most substantive conversation that Deja and I had throughout the conference was really not so much about the conference, but the status and position of Black people in the U.S. at the conference, right? So where we're talking about these high-level meetings, what is the role of civil society, especially for the 50 million Black folks coming from the U.S., and what role do we play? Is it something symbolic as recognized in the Juneteenth celebrations, or are we going to have real input in these type of gatherings? So when I think of reparations, I think about the issues that most affect our people on a day-to-day basis. Here in Brooklyn, people are being ethnic cleansed, removed from their neighborhoods en masse. People are being shot and killed. These very, moment-to-moment, day-to-day issues. None of that was there, and we weren't organized enough to represent that. So to me, it's a question of, where does our movement in the U.S. really come together to make sure that our voice is heard in these larger meetings? So with that, I'll pass to Deja.
I guess my biggest takeaway was in the discussions about how the leadership saw implementation, that there were different mechanisms that the AU and CARICOM have specifically developed to move this outcome, to move the next steps forward, based off of the 2023 Accra meeting, the AU CARICOM summit, and I think another agreement that is just represented how they gave shape to their unity, and how they plan to keep working together to move the next steps forward, or to move the outcome document forward. And the ambassador to the AU, I think in the first panel session, mentioned like when the UN comes around, this will take the main stage because the coalition of nations and hopefully civil society being hopefully represented, which that panel was also very informative in terms of how people saw the gaps between the heads of state and the leadership of nations giving motion towards what was being discussed, but where was civil society's opportunity to also contribute and give motion. But basically saying that when the General Assembly of the UN comes around, the emphasis on wanting to have each of the nations represent the same focus or the same agenda, where it's a paragraph or just like reiterating the pieces of the outcome document that we want to have unity on. So that stuck out to me for sure. And it was just great to be in that environment of like collaboration and everyone hearing the work that people were a part of from wherever they were from, and just meeting people, talking about Durban, talking about all the history of the work that has been done in that international arena and in the spirit of Pan-Africanism. So it was very cool for me. That was like the first time I've been a part of something like that. So I was really grateful to be there.
So I really want to thank you all. I'm glad the December 12th sent delegation. December 12th, for those who don't know, was very, very instrumental in ensuring that civil society was present 25 years ago in Durban, South Africa, at the World Conference Against Racism, where it was first formally acknowledged that the transatlantic slave trade, quote, at that time, was a crime against humanity and always should have been. So people, please make great use of the chat. Jahi, I know you said that D12 has a more substantive talk back or report back on Wednesday, so you might want to add that in there. And I know those who can stay, but people be jotting down your questions, because after we get the 5-minute reflections for folks, we're going to open it up to Q&A. So again, thank you very much, Brother Jahi and Sister Dejra. And it was good to see you in Accra. Okay, so I'm going to call, and also I see Zizwe Poe there in the audience as well. But Dr. Akila, let me find you here so I can bring you up, because I know, okay, just hold on one second. Here you are. Okay, add spotlight. Okay, there you are. Please introduce yourself. And let's go on and hear your 5 minutes. And I will take myself off.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Nikichi. I am Dr. Akila Mukaram. I'm president of the Afro-Descendant Nation. Thank you for the invitation. I did write a few things down. So again, good evening, everyone. So I would like to begin with expressing my sincere gratitude for the invitation from the government of Ghana, from the foreign minister, to be included in that space, and also for the president for having the gumption to actually have this resolution presented. So as an Afro-descendant woman whose ancestors experienced the system that the resolution now recognizes as the gravest crime against humanity, as standing in Ghana, it carried a significance that is quite difficult to even put in words. It reminded me that reparations is not just a legal political issue, it is profoundly human. It's about people. families, identities, histories, and futures. As someone who has spent years engaged in the advocacy of self-determination and reparatory justice and the recognition of Afro-descendants who are the descendants of Africans subjected to racialized chattel enslavement, it was deeply meaningful to witness representatives from governments, regional institutions, civil society organizations, scholars, there were activists, and different Afro-descendant communities gathered in a common place for a common purpose. For me, one of the most powerful aspects of this convening was the recognition that the adoption of the United Nations Resolution Res 80 250 was not just an endpoint. It was the beginning of a journey from recognition to repair, from acknowledgement to action, and from declaration to transformation. The declaration that the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans constitute the gravest crimes against humanity represents a profound moral and historical acknowledgement. Yet, acknowledgments alone do not repair the harm. They must be followed by action, accountability, and transformation. As I listened throughout the conference, I was reminded that reparatory justice is not solely about addressing the past, it is about addressing the present realities that continue to flow continuously from that past. The consequences of racialized chattel enslavement are still visible in economic disparities, educational inequities, cultural loss, political marginalization, and the ongoing struggle of many communities to fully exercise their collective rights and human dignity. So I was encouraged by the document's emphasis on truth-telling, education, cultural renewal, health, economic justice, restitution, and the right to self-determination. These are interconnected dimensions of repair. At the same time, I left Ghana with a renewed conviction that our work must continue to center the voices and lived experiences of Afro-descendants, the descendants of those who endured the racialized chattel enslavement. Their perspectives, their aspirations, and priorities must remain at the heart of every conversation, policy framework, and implementation strategy. I was particularly moved by the discussions concerning identity, memory, and cultural restoration. One of the deepest wounds inflicted by enslavement was not only the theft of labor, land, and wealth, but also the disruption and loss of mother tongue African languages, culture, family structures, and collective identity. Reparatory justice must therefore include the restoration of historical truth, cultural memory, and human dignity. I also lead with a sense of responsibility. The outcome document is an important step forward, but the true measure of the success will be with the implementation, building, and sustaining the years ahead. Will we build the institutions needed to sustain this work? Will we strengthen connections between Africans, Afro-descendants, and other people of African descent throughout the global diaspora? Will we create meaningful pathways to economic empowerment, cultural renewal, education, healing, and self-determination? Those are questions that now stand before us. As we move forward, I believe we must remain united by a shared commitment to justice, guided by truth, and inspired by the resilience of our ancestors whose struggles made this moment possible. I return from Ghana encouraged, I'm energized, and I'm hopeful. Hopeful not because the work is finished, but because we are witnessing a growing global recognition that reparatory justice is not a matter of charity, it is a matter of justice, human dignity, and the fulfillment of long denied rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And please make use of the chat. I don't know if your prepared remarks are chattable, but anything you want to share. Again, Dr. Mukaram, thank you so very much for
Mukaram.
being there. Mukaram, what did I say? What thank
Mukaram.
my tongue is colonized. So
Yes,
thank you,
ma'am.
sir.
No
That's why I
problem.
usually say Dr. Akila.
Thank
So
you, my sister. I
okay,
appreciate it.
peace and blessings. Look forward to seeing you later on this week.
Likewise.
Okay. Okay, so I think I said Brother Sifiwe next, and then Dr. Cheryl Grills, and I see Brother Zizwe Poe. I see Gretchen, and whenever Senator Sanders you want to hop in, just let me know, and I'll let you say a few words. But
After three
Sifiwe,
more speakers would be fine. After three more speakers.
okay, that sounds good. Okay, hold on. I had uh, I'm not sure who Asila Dewan is, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are about 8 of you here. But okay, it's all good. Here we go. Okay, so introduce yourself, my brother. And, even though it just dawned on me, even though it's probably midnight where you are, I know you, and I know you're going to be on probably the whole time, making sure you get all the information, down there. And please make use of the chat. We will open it up for Q&A afterwards. So let me remove myself, and you please introduce yourself and give your 5-minute reflection. There you go.
Thank you, Nkechi, and greetings to all my brothers and sisters and comrades. Those that were in Accra, good to see you again. I just arrived in Guinea-Bissau tonight. And those that weren't there, I'm glad that you are here to hear. My name is Sipiwe Baleka. I am the founder of the Balanta Barasa History and Genealogy Society. And most of my work is with lineage restoration and our right to return. So let me start off by sort of the positive things, and then I have some critiques. On the one hand, I dropped my full report in the chat already. There's a link. On the one hand, I think Sir Hilary Beckles made a brilliant point when he said that this was historic because of the fact that from the first time in our reparations movement, the entire African people, both those at home and those abroad, the states, African states, Caribbean states, for the first time, we are all talking about reparations. And what that means is we all have heard that saying that, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. Well, Hilary Beckles was making the point that there's a new variable in the equation. The fact that we are all heads of state people, grassroots from all regions where there are African people, we're all on the same page. We might not agree on all the paragraphs yet, but we're all on the same page, and the rest of the world is also focused on that. So because there's a new variable in the equation, there is scientific grounds for us to expect a different result. So that made an impression on me. We don't know what that result is going to be. Jahi had asked about those of us that were in that first day session. I was concerned going to the event that they were going to have a closed door secret session on the first day and all the decisions were going to be made without us. That is not what happened. They opened it up. We were all allowed in. And we painstakingly went through nearly every paragraph, and everybody got a chance to contribute ideas, edits. That doesn't always happen, and that was encouraging. However, I would say that what they should have done was distribute the draft document to all the registered delegates a week before and created some portal or mechanism or way where people can give their input to the draft document before we finally meet in the meeting, because it's very difficult to get all the brilliant contributions that there are in one day in that kind of setting. But they did make a good faith effort to let everybody contribute. Now, on my major criticism, the thing that I'm most worried about is I heard about this meeting before it was publicly announced. And originally, I thought this was going to be a meeting where the Committee of Experts on Reparations and the Legal Reference Group, along with the AUCIL, its International Law Committee, was going to get together and discuss legal strategies, like specific legal strategies. That's not what this was. They had one panel session that I did attend that did go into legal strategies. So right now, there's a great emphasis on the political aspect and the diplomatic aspect. I'm concerned because I don't know to what extent where we really are concerning legal strategy. It was very difficult to find any information on who is on the Committee of Experts of Reparations and who is on the Legal Reference Group. I went specifically to find out who those people are and build relationships with them, because that's where we need to be if we want to impact sort of the legal strategy. And I have my own beliefs about the direction we should be going into, which are suo motu declarations, where we don't even engage the current legal order architecture because of the structural contradictions. They can't even contemplate many of the crimes that traditional African sovereign thinking would come up with. So I know I got 20 seconds left. I would say this.
We actually have a whole minute.
Oh, okay, good. All right. Here's my recommendation, particularly for Afro-descendants in the United States. We are not being fully respected and given our place at the table. The Abuja Proclamation, 1993, and Mahama himself to the AU earlier this year, there are mandates, policies that says the engagement mechanism are going to be national reparations commissions. We have one. Now, the Caribbean, because it's states, they've ascended to this partnership with the AU. They have more status. But if we look at it this way, there are 30 million people in the Caribbean, but there's 50 million of us in the United States. We have all of these state reparations commissions. My recommendation is Dr. Daniels and NARC need to call an emergency NARC meeting to bring those of us who are not really involved in NARC, bring all of us in, and then use the fact that NARC does have that standing as a National Reparations Commission to assert the fact that Muhammad himself said the National Reparations Commissions will be the method for engagement. So NARC has to be broadened a little bit so that more of us are contributing, and then we need to assert that. And that's how we're going to get our interests discussed and the proper recognition. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Sifiwe, and I know you'll make ample use of the chat with all of your documents and the like. Thank you for those recommendations. And I'm going to bring up Dr. Cheryl Grills, Brother Cizibwe Poe, and then Senator Sanders. I also see that Vince Evans from the Congressional Black Caucus has joined us, and so he and Gretchen will follow Senator Sanders. So Dr. Grills, I'm adding your spotlight, and if you can introduce yourself and give us your 5-minute reflection.
Okay, thank you, and greetings, everyone. It's an honor to be here to share some thoughts. I have basically 7 reflection points I want to make, and so I'll be as quick and brief as possible, and I'll try not to repeat what others have said, and particularly around some of the positives. I concur. One of the things I wanted to uplift was the fact that the whole emphasis on the centrality of healing as part of reparations was coming through loud and clear, particularly from heads of state, but also from general speakers. What was a bit of a head scratcher for me was that while people endorse the importance of healing, I don't know the extent to which they really understand what that entails. And I say that because when I look at some of the things that were in the document and that did not make their way into that document, it was a head scratcher. So I think that's a conversation that needs to continue, but thank goodness we have the Global Circle that has really taken on trying to put some meat to that bone. Second thing is it was I don't have a qualifier for it. The way that people talk about those of us who are living outside of the continent, I think reveal the need for a greater conversation on exactly how inclusive are we or are we not going to be on this issue of reparations, particularly for those of us who are living in various parts of the diaspora and in contexts where the ruling government does not respect or address our needs. So I'm extending that to Safiwe's earlier point. It's not, I think, just us in the U.S., but we've got other members of the family in other spaces and places structurally, like the U.S., Canada, the U.K., we're across Latin America. And if our countries don't take a position, then how do we get represented in the process? The third point is I found it curious that we deferred to terminology. Well, we didn't. The process ended up deferring many times to terminology that was used by the UN, that was familiar to various bodies, without interrogating how appropriate or relevant those terms were. And so I think that there's some need. This comes under the healing part for me, because why would we use the master's terminology to deconstruct what the master has done and get repair? The fourth point is I found that it was the
Frozen.
conversation. I'm sorry.
Okay. I don't know. You were frozen for me, but maybe it's my internet connection. Keep going. I think everyone else is hearing you
No, she
okay.
was good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. So there was a heavy theoretical emphasis in many of the presentations. And I was actually looking forward to like the practical roll up our sleeves, kind of like what Safiwe was talking about in terms of the legal strategy. What are some of the concrete next steps related to strategies for other kinds of strategies? The fifth thing is I felt like we were rushed to get a finished document. And some people in that first day meeting, made points about, hey, other folks took like 3 months to do what we're trying to do in one day, and with most people in the room not having the benefit of prior copies of the document. So people were thinking in the moment on and off the cuff. And so I think that there are different parts of the document that kind of reflect that. So I would like to consider this as a document that is not final, but it is in progress, and that it can, as Wade Nobles would say, be more better if we put our minds to it. The seventh thing is, the sixth thing is that I saw very clearly that we desperately need more conversations in the Pan-African community. We don't understand or know each other's context, history, preferences, and needs related to reparations. And if we're going to act as a united body, I think we need to take the time to get to know each other a little bit better, so that that deeper understanding is reflected in what we do. The final thing I will say, how much time do I have left?
Actually, I need to come on camera.
Oh,
Just a
okay.
couple of seconds. Just do your
All right.
concluding.
My concluding
Where am I?
section. My conclusion is that I was one of the panelists invited to speak on a panel that was focused on the importance of civil society organizations and government being in partnership. And one of the things that I emphasized, among a number of other things, was that reparations has to be understood as both a process and a set of outcomes. And a lot of attention is given to the outcomes associated with reparations, like how much money is paid, resources, monuments, all that kind of thing. But this is at the expense of attention to the processes that need to happen. And so when they start talking about civil society, what does that mean? And does that reflect on the ground community representation? And what is the partnership? Is there equal footing between government and community and civil society on decision making, et cetera?
Okay, thank you so very much, Dr. Grills. It was a pleasure communing with you in Accra. Zizwe Poe, you're not on camera, but are you prepared to make your comments right now? There you are. You are on camera. Please introduce yourself, and you can go on and begin your 5 minutes.
Okay, my name is Zizwe Poe. I'm a professor at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, and I'm currently the president of the African Heritage Studies Association, an organization that John Henry Clark is one of the legacy founders of, and Dr. Rosalind Jeffries and Linda Jeffries are significant people. Tony Browder is connected to as one of our board of directors. And bottom line is we're concerned with African heritage. And the way I became connected with the specific conference for implementation is that one of my students is involved with the Ghana government. And we dealt a lot with Pan-Africanism and concepts of the needs of African people. I'm just going to keep this short. I don't really have a long speech because I've read Sipwe's document. I've looked at a number of other documents. I think they speak loud. And the only shortcoming, well, let me first say this. Most of the presentations are streamed right now on YouTube. The Ministry of the Foreign Affairs put up more than 10 hours of presentations, and there's a couple of secondary commentators are there. You can see Julius Garvey's presentation at the closing. The ambassador from Barbados was closed. Excellent presentation. The cultural presentation. All these are coming through on YouTube, and I'm glad that the government really put time in the recording and presenting of a lot of it, so that people who couldn't be there at least could see what some of the statements were. My summary statement was when I was I was one of the technical experts. I was trying to make sure that we stayed united because I knew it would be a debating forum in some sense, even though there was a document already prepared by those who did the early work. I was a little disappointed that some people seemed like they hadn't read the document even while they had it. Because some of at the beginning, I mean, it went smooth later, but in the beginning, we kept going over things that were in upcoming paragraphs, and people tended to repeat themselves. But in the overall thing, I think the strongest point out of this whole conference was that there was a government. I know some people don't want the governments involved, but and sometimes they shouldn't be. But the resources that were used for this conference, it's a good thing that we had the kind of a resource bank that a government that declares itself looking out for the people's class and for the people helped to sponsor the activity. I think that was important because I've been disappointed with the AU ever since the death of Gaddafi, and I don't want to go too deep in it. But I see sometimes the AU doesn't have the strength that we needed to have, and I think Julius Garvey in his closing statement, as well as President Mahama, at the closing ceremony, really gave conclusive statements. And I'd rather than repeat it, watch it on YouTube. It's there, and you can find it. And then I just have one note to say. In all my teaching of history and studies, the people that get reparations are the victors in wars, and the people that pay it are usually the victims who lose it. I'm not saying we won't get reparations, but understand there is a battle ahead, and power is the thing that will give, and this is in Sipwe's documents and other people's statements that made it here, is going to take mass organization. It's going to take us educating a whole generation that will be free from the brain dirtying that they're getting in the school system and with the media. And African Heritage Studies Association is now committed to that, and we're trying to help the first step in reparations, which is to repair ourselves so that we're strong enough to take whatever was taken from us. But we see it happening now. And so we're very happy, and the people that were there were just great. I mean, the arguments were all over, but it just felt so good for the consciousness to rise to that level, and for them to claim we now are working as a unit. It was a statement of aspiration, but it was an important statement of aspiration because the power begins with conception. Thank you for the time that you've allowed me to share the idea.
Thank you very much, my brother. It was great meeting you. Thank you. So now I want to bring up State Senator James Sanders, who is the architect of the New York State reparations bill. I just had you queued up and it just jumped. So just hold on one moment. Who was present and formally presented at the session as well. Here we are. Senator Sanders, greetings. How are you? And thank you for joining us.
Greetings. Do you mind if I go after the Congressional Black Caucus? It seems that he is the rank.
Well, okay. Let me just see if hold on, just Vince Evans, who is the executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus. Vince, I'm not sure if you were on at the very beginning, but Senator Sanders wants to go after you. So I'm going to, can I just keep you up so I don't have to find you again, Senator Sanders? I'm just going
Absolutely.
to move myself. Um, um, Vince, if you can please introduce yourself for the audience and give us your reflection.
Vincent Evans, Executive Director of the Congressional Black Caucus. And Nikichi, thank you for your leadership in pulling us all together. I'm going to really, frankly, associate myself with the comments of Dr. Grills, Dr. Mukuma, and Sifway, because they have, in my opinion, articulated very clearly what we saw happen in Ghana. So I will associate myself with everything that the three of them have said. And then, of course, what Dr. Post said at the end, I think is also important. I was very pleased to see the aspiration that he pointed out about the unity that we all seek, knowing that it is aspirational, but that there's still a great deal of work to do. When I read out to Chairwoman Clark, the current chair of the CBC, what took place in Accra this morning, one of the things that I said to her was that there's a great need for education of a new generation of people, myself included in that group. And so it was good for me to be able to sit there as a newer voice, at least in this work more deeply, to learn and hear from so many of the trusted leaders and experts on this call. What is clear to me, though, is there is a generation that does not understand or fully appreciate what happened in Accra. And that must be a mainstay of our work going forward, to bring that generation with us so that they appreciate and understand this fight. The legal avenues question is one that we have grappled with at the Congressional Black Caucus and would welcome to be a part of those. I think you mentioned that several times. It is an important conversation, one that was missing that I still have questions about. So I concur with you in that regard. It was a healing moment in many ways. It was a transformational moment. And so I'm thankful to have had the opportunity to sit at the foot of so many individuals who have committed their lives to this work. I could tell you, and I will end here on these 2 points. For the Congressional Black Caucus, for decades now, because many of you have helped lead that work for our caucus long before I worked here, we have said that HR 40 is our North Star. And that remains true. I do think, though, that as I listened, there is even a re-education of our caucus that needs to happen. And I'm going to look to the leaders on this call to very soon work with me to help that re-education. There's a new generation of leaders in the caucus who need to appreciate the work beyond just HR 40, but the global work, and how we are approaching these issues. Obviously, the resolution gives us that opportunity. So that is one of the things I will be taking back to the caucus. And then the only other thing I will say, and I say this gently because this group knows it best. What was shown through to me is, from our perspective, we probably are going to have to bring forth our own sort of, and you all will correct me if I'm speaking without past knowledge, but our own sort of next steps document that reflects our plan. Because absent of that, it would seem to me, just as someone new to the conversation, what I saw in Accra is if we don't bring it, we will be trying to always put ourselves in, always asking to be included, always asking for a seat at the table. And I think we're going to have to push a little bit and a little harder to say, no, we are at the table. Here's what we expect, and we need you to buy into our plan. And I do want to say, as I ended my time in Accra, I happened to have dinner with the foreign minister. And I said that very comment to him, and he was receptive of it. And I said, Mr. Foreign Minister, it would seem to me just after the last 3 or 4 days, we need to bring something forward for you all to respond to. And I think I got some tacit agreement. So I offered that. Again, I offered, though, not knowing that there are certainly efforts that precede my time that probably have all of that in it. We just got to raise it up. So thank you, Nikichi, for this opportunity.
Vincent, thank you very much for your comments, and I'm jotting all this down. This whole proceeding is being recorded, and all of these are phenomenal and very, very critical suggestions that are being made. So thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to again reintroduce State Senator James Sanders from New York, the architect of the New York State reparations bill, along with Representative Michaela Songes. So, Senator Sanders, you have the floor.
I'm glad that I went after the CBC. He has said many of the points that I wanted to raise. Perhaps he was looking at my notes. Of course, that's a joke, my friends. He couldn't see it. It was a great conference, very uplifting in many different ways. Now let's dig deeper. Let's get deeper than that. I'm going to grade it. I'm going to say that for continental Africans and Caribbean nations, it was a B. That you judge a meeting or a conference by what comes out of it. What was their goal? What were you trying to achieve? And that's how you judge a thing, not how good it made you feel or anybody you saw or any of these other things. You judge it. What was your goal that you were trying to achieve, and was that goal accomplished? The goal that they were trying to achieve was to legitimize a document, to come up with a document and say that this is something that we need to go with. That document, of course, has a bunch of questions in it, but that's fine, one step at a time. For global Africans, especially for the African American, I would argue that we came out with a C. That we didn't do kind of well there, and it's I would argue that it stemmed from two or three different things. One is two different sayings. If you aim at nothing, you usually hit it. And the Bible says, for the lack of a vision, the people perish. We didn't have a vision, a unit. We didn't go in with unity. We didn't have the pleasure of meeting. I didn't have the pleasure of meeting most of you folk before now. And lucky y'all didn't meet me. I mean, so under those conditions, we didn't have a chance to bounce around and say what we wanted to get out of this. So we went in without a game plan, if you wish. We went in with we aimed at nothing, and we had to accept what came out of it. Now, there was an attempt to do some meetings in there, but there was a bit of tension inside the group. We were not used to working with one another, and that did not take place. That was, on hindsight, a terrible loss, where we should have sat down and disciplined ourselves and said, here are the things that we need to get out of this. One reflection of this was that they came up with 3 groups at the end, and the most important panel, I would argue, was the first one that was mentioned, and they mentioned no African Americans on that panel. I have been since told that there is 1 or 2. I cannot confirm that, my friends. I spoke to the foreign minister also, and he concurred that this wasn't the smoothest way of doing it. And I take it as a personal. I should have reached out to you more, Brother Vincent, and said we should have met. Just enough of everybody else. We should have met, and perhaps with the brother from Nan, and the 3 of us needed to have met. But the D12 and others were very willing to meet. So we do not have, right at this moment, to my knowledge, we don't have anyone on the guiding panel, and that is dangerous. My last point is that Amilcar Cabral, one of our great leaders, told us that the battle that we struggle for is to get into history, is to make history. And the danger is we can make other people's history without making our own. We can help the continental Africans get reparations for the continent and the Caribbean, perhaps, and not get reparation for ourselves, my friends. That is, now, on one hand, that may be positive. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the worst thing. It would move the struggle forward, but might set our immediate struggle back. It's an interesting place. We have to look at this. The next steps, of course, we need to meet. All of us need to, and I commend you for having this meeting. It's bold. I'm meeting with I will speak to my good friend, Congresswoman Clark again, and Reverend Sharpton and others. We need to have, and Vincent, you need to reach out and just give me a call, man. Forget all of that. Just give a holler. We need to come up with we need a united front. We need a big umbrella, something big enough to take the left, the right, and the middle of our community on this issue. We need a big tent where we would have the strength to say, okay, here is what we want to do, and here is how, and to win as many people over to it, and then take it to the streets. Because all of this is just navel gazing and talking to ourselves. Because the average person on the street in our hometown, forget Africa, our own hometown, don't know anything about any of this. Doesn't know anything about any of this stuff. We're alienated from our own people if we're not going out and speaking to our people. I will stop there and hope that there are some questions, but I alert you, my friends, don't ask me any question that you don't want the answer to, because I'm going to give it uncut. I don't mean to hurt anybody. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. But we should not have a paralysis of analysis at a time like this.
Thank you so very much, Senator. You laid out some very critical points. Let me just say where we're going to go from here. We have one last speaker, which is Gretchen Rohr, and there we want to open it up for Q&A. I do want to note that I have called on everyone that I saw in the audience who was actually there, but there are many people on this screen who have been very much involved in global and international work. I mean, I'm just going to name just some of them: Roger Wareham, Akil Kafani, Maynard Curry, Morgan Moss, Kwame Kalimara, Dr. Kimberly Ellis, Akiayo Moja, Prophet Anua Cox, Afia Zaki, and the list goes on. So when we do open it up, I will be calling on Dr. Kimberly Ellis first. That's Dr. Goddess because her hand is raised. But right now, let me bring up Gretchen Rohr, who is our loudspeaker. I'm trying to. Oh, is your video on, Gretchen? Because I can't bring you up unless your video is on. If you're not, your video's not on, you can still speak.
It is now. Can you?
Okay, it is
hear
now.
me?
I can hear you. I just have to find you again because my eyes are colonized. You can go in and start to introduce yourself.
Your eyes have just seen so much. Hi.
Where are you?
Hey, everyone. It's just so great to hear everybody's takeaways and insights, and it'll be great. I'm going to try to stay as long as I can to hear some of these questions as well. But yes, I'm also hitting midnight here in Ghana, and we're
I didn't know you were still in Ghana. Okay.
Going to be here for another week because this week we had a lot of the lawyers getting together and figuring out next steps, and then next week will be a conference relating to redefining and revolutionizing development. As we know, many of the state development goals can sit in opposition to our objectives of reparations. So I appreciate the indication of what others are saying about those questions, but I guess not to take up my full 5.
Can you introduce yourself, Gretchen, who you're with?
Hi, Gretchen Rohr. Hi, I'm Gretchen Rohr. I work with the team that's technical advisors to the president. Also, but my work has primarily been with the African Union itself, the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, as well as the court, CEDAW and ECOSOC. And then I also work my political home is the Movement for Black Lives and a coalition of Wakati Wetu, which connects Brazil, our continental partners in Africa, and organizers in the U.S. I did want to add one note. I think the first day, I also was there the first day, but was not part of the preliminary conversations. And I think what could have been useful, we've learned, is that there was many of us did not, including myself, I did not see a copy of the outcome statement in advance. We've been trying to keep some of the legal litigation work and the work that was specific to the UN resolution separate. So I was not a part of, even though I'm part of the team, I was not a part of the drafting with any of that work with the outcome statement, but they did meet about 4 times in advance of bringing us all together physically. And I think that because of that, there was a combination in the room of a sense of some that we just we're going way too fast. I know I had so many questions. I really wish that I had had more opportunity to review. I did have to entrust because there was a member of my team who was part of those calls. And I think a lot of the folks who had been a part of the calls felt that it was one of those, wait, we're not getting anywhere. They had really hoped to kind of wrap it up by then. And I know that these are just some of the challenges of the speed in which a lot of action is taking place. And I don't want to be an apologist for it, because much of it I don't understand myself. But I do believe that the resolution moved faster than a lot of us thought it would. And I think now everyone is recognizing that a lot has to move faster because of what is being triggered by the global discussion, as well as the political response. I believe that I fully agree with everyone that one of my biggest takeaways is about people power and how can we make sure that we're resourcing it. As someone who works, I don't believe in this whole concept of high level or inside outside strategy. I don't really know who's inside or outside anymore. I think the movement is what I want. The movement is what there needs to be. The movement is where the inside work happens. But the state is very much reliant on us, on civil society, on organizers, who have the expertise and bring the time. And I know particularly when thinking about the challenges that, or the concerns that I have about state capture of reparations, I appreciate, even the concern about legal capture of a reparative cosmology and to shift philosophy into jurisprudence that was always indigenous and African from its origins. It took a lot of advocating by people, I'm sure, on this call to even get to the point where we had the UN basic principles that concretized that. So there's always going to be distortions by legal systems and by the state. And then there's also going to be an integration. And what I was really inspired by was knowing how much, even though we were seeing an exercise of state power, knowing how much of it was driven by people. It was organizers and NGOs that got the state. Ooh, wow. Okay. Let me just outline it. Can I outline my takeaways really quickly?
Very quickly. In fact,
one is, okay, so to shift from state capture, I think we do have the opportunity to build out with co-governance. I think that there's an introduction to that. I can think of at least 4 different coalitions that are working really well in building out a civil society contingent. I know that there's a lot that are considering whether there should be an equivalent of something like that as with the UN Permanent Forum and how we need to utilize, not the forum itself, I'm sorry, but the civil society contingent. There's not something like that with the African Union at this time. I found that with the aspirational statements is a really ability for us to lean into them, particularly in defining power outside of domination as it's communicated through violence. I very much supported and appreciated the comments about mental conditioning, and as well as the comments about the need to expand into gender justice, addressing how the erasure of Black women has been a part of history. And so seeing Madame Tabari there, many don't recognize that she was the one who really did an introduction of a lot of work relating to crime against humanity. I will put in the list, I can type into the list of the legal experts that were named. Indeed, with the Global Advisory, we do have some incredible friends. I know of people who are on this call. We're friends with a lot of the folks on the Global Advisory broader, like Epsy Campbell. But as to the league, but there is not someone on the U.S. this time. On the legal, the U.S. representative was Benjamin Crump.
Okay. Gretchen, thank you very much. And you can put whatever names you need to put in the chat. I want to take the opportunity now to take us all back to the general screen and open it up for Q&A. Senator Sanders had left off with some very important takeaways, as did everyone. So if you all can just raise your hand if you have any question or comment. Everyone who registered for this community report back, one of the links in the email that you received was a link to the actual outcome document, the next steps document. So I just want to let you know that that's there. And as someone mentioned earlier, just about the whole proceeding, it's on various YouTube channels. So the government of Ghana did an excellent job with respect to making sure that there's a historical record for this historical convenings. So Dr. Kimberly Ellis, I'm going to call on you first to give your question or comment, and please don't necessarily direct question to me. I was there. I'm just the convener of this, but the experts who were there as well, who spoke earlier today, you can direct your question to any one of them. So where are you, Dr. Ellis?
I'm here. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can see you. Go on. I'm not highlighting Q&A. Just go on and speak.
Okay, thank you. Greetings, everybody. I'm Dr. Kimberly Ellis, and for those who don't know me, I am from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I am August Wilson's niece. I have been working on reparations for over 20 years. I am a part of the original, and I launched the original campaign, All Eyes on Tulsa, to make what happened in Tulsa a household understanding, and we did arrive at that point. I worked with Johnny Cochran, Charles Ogletree, Randall Robinson. I'm so sorry that all 3 of them are gone. But I'm here, to represent them and our work. I'm sorry, I was going to come to Ghana, but I ended up with a foot injury, so I had to bow out. Um, Two things that I really want to make clear is that I really love what has happened. I appreciate John Mahama's efforts. I appreciate what happened in Ghana. However, no one can speak for us, period. And we cannot go through Ghana's or President Mahama's process. The process we have some different work that we have to do. The first thing that we have to do is to continue to transform the African Union itself. The African Union, like Representative Sanders said, is problematic even right now. They did create some space for us. And so I was upset like listening to you all because I was like, it sounded as though everybody thought, oh, okay, John Mahama's putting this event together and we're going to be represented. But this is in preparation for the African Union. See, he wants to take this to the African Union. So if African Americans were not included, that it's just unacceptable. So I want to plead to all of us that we have to take it straight to the African Union, because even the African Union, in their acceptance of a sixth region, right? The diaspora. Well, CARICOM has CARICOM, and you have different countries represented in CARICOM. There isn't anything specifically for African Americans, and I want to advocate that we actually have a federated organization and representatives of those organizations, because we will not be able to, and we probably shouldn't, try to put NARC together with NCOBRA and the Reparations Coalition and put all these different people and say, oh, okay, this is our one representative. It's not going to happen. We already know this. And I think that we can definitely come together and name many of our points.
Okay, wait, hold on. I want to make sure that we're able to get to everybody who wants to make a question or comment, so we're going to keep it brief, and I'm going to use this. If really question or comment shouldn't be more than a minute. And if any of the speakers who spoke earlier who were in Ghana want to respond, I would give them the opportunity. So what's your last point, Dr. Goddess?
So my last part is that Ben Crump works with Natalie Jackson, and many of you all know her because she was Trayvon Martin's family attorney. Their organization that they just created is called the Black Diaspora in America Collective. So that's how Ben Crump is like being represented legally. There's just a number. I guess my question is, there's a number of different things that we need to do to be represented as African Americans and to tell our specific story to the African Union. And I want to know what you all think about that. And I guess my question is directed to Representative Sanders and Cheryl Grills in particular.
Okay.
Checking any luggage today? All right. Place your bag on the scale for me. No,
please put yourself on mute.
Items in there. That would include any laptops.
Please put yourself on mute. Let me see.
No medications you need out of there.
There we go. Okay. Okay, Dr. Ellis, thank you very much for that. And before I turn to response to that, I will say that on that first day, there were many comments with respect to lack of representation, the lack of self-determination, the lack of sovereignty. Who are we as a people? Who speaks for us, and the like. So, and it's not just a matter of just clicking one organization, or one organization might have a name or a term, whatever. But we need to come to an agreement. I know at one point there was talk about plebiscites.
So carry on.
Who we are.
You have your boarding pass on your phone.
Okay. Okay, I'm muted. So, Prophet Cox, before I go to you for the next question, does Senator Sanders, did you want to respond to?
I yield to Cheryl Grills if she wishes.
Dr. Grills?
Yeah, and I'm afraid I had some connectivity issues, so I didn't hear the specific question she wanted myself and Senator Sanders to.
Part of it was representation. You know, who speaks for us? Right. Who speaks for us here in the diaspora, specifically in the United States, where the government that we are under does not speak for us, which is totally seen by that one of the 3 no votes to the UN overwhelming declaration. So I think that was of the crux of it.
Specifically in the African Union, that John Mahama also does not speak for us, respectfully.
Right. Yes. No, that's a critical question. And I think we have not done our homework and our due diligence to be able to establish who speaks for us. Even though the African Union, well, it's played a little a kind of back and forth game about the sixth region. And, you know, one minute it's us, and the next minute it's people who left the continent and, you know, they want that money going back in, flowing back in, et cetera, et cetera. I think that we need to come up with a process to determine what is the will of the people, where we get input from different parts of the country and also from other parts of the sixth region. And I think it is doable. It's going to be a bit of labor, but I think until we do some kind of due diligence to determine who represents us, that is an unanswered question for which it is open to much reaction and negative reaction in particular. So I think we need to roll up our sleeves and figure out the process to determine who represents us and how that representation is done and how we keep in regular contact on the ground with various communities to determine, are people still with this? Are there additional ideas, thoughts, etc.?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Grills. Senator Sanders, and then I see Sifiwe Balenka answering that. And then when we go to the next question, Prophet Cox, you'll be the first one there. Senator Sanders?
I will be quick. The fault is not Ghana in that sense, or the African community, or the Caribbean for that matter. The fault is ours. They are speaking for their interest, and they are speaking rather clearly for their interest. And we need to make sure that our interests are part of that. So therefore, there should be a struggle for unity. Unity is not something that you can just turn around and decide at 5 o'clock tomorrow we will all be unified. I mean, it would be great if we could do that, but that is just not realistic. It's a struggle for unity that we're going to have to go through, but it's going to require political maturity. A maturity that says that we all say, okay, this, we believe our organization is the only organization, the best, or whatever it is, and that everybody needs to just come and join us because we are the way, the truth, and the light. No man goeth unto the Father but by me. All of that stuff, but that is not politically mature. That is politically immature. The best way to struggle around that is through principles. What are the things that we're trying to do? And how are the actions that will take us to those principles? One of the principles, of course, should be transparency and other things like that we should attest or we should strive for. Now, we may end up coming up and saying that we need to create the sixth region. We need to present it to them and say, y'all ain't got to worry about what forming us anymore. We've already formed. But it's a struggle, and we have to commit ourselves to that struggle, and it should be a principled struggle. It should not be. It should be a principled struggle. Thank you.
Can I say one more thing? The this meeting in Accra was to prepare for the African Union meeting that is next week. The next African Union meeting after that is in February. Okay, so we know, I don't know what's going to happen next week, but if somebody needs to make something, somebody needs to do something.
Okay, so
in February, we need to be strong.
Yeah, I just want to say that this struggle didn't just start yesterday, and it's not going to end tomorrow. So we need to come together. Okay, we don't need to look at the deadlines that they have, put right there. Let me go on to Sifiwe Balenka. You have the floor.
Yeah, just very quickly to this point about the AU 6th region. First of all, I want to make it known I was the only African American in the room February 3rd, 2003, when the African Union passed the Article 3Q amendment that invited the full participation. And as a result, I had the information early, and I was the first AU 6th Region Education Campaign Director that was responsible for traveling the Western Hemisphere, educating us about what the 6th Region is, and making known that the Economic, Social, and Cultural Council statutes, I used to could verbatim, it's section 5, but basically it says, African diaspora, organize yourself. And at that time, the first interface mechanism was through Economic, Social, and Cultural Council, and they had reserved 20 seats. I have been involved in organizing the 6th region, all of it, since then, for over 20 years. And I'd be happy to do a briefing for anyone who would like to get caught up to speed on the architecture within the AU and within the AU ECOSOC, who the people are, and the institutional memory that we already have. I'm offering
Contact me, brother. I'd love it. Contact me. I'm easy. Senator Sanders. I'm stuck in New York.
You got it.
So, since Freeway, also put whatever your information is there in the chat with respect to that and the organizing that you were doing, even in terms of the plebiscite and the like. I'm going to call on the next person, but before I do, in the chat, you know, Zoom just does weird things. Okay, I was trying, if before we were still there, if you could put the Gravest crime sign-on letter link on the chat. But there is after the March 25th declaration, we started a civil society sign-on letter that basically says that we were in support with the majority of nations of the world in affirming the declaration that the United States government does not speak for us with respect to that matter. That letter is to be formally delivered to the President and the Minister of Foreign Affairs on July the 4th, the 250th anniversary of you know what. So if your organization is not signed on, or you can sign on as an individual as well, you will have the opportunity. So for someone, if you could put that link in the chat, I appreciate it. I'm going to call on now Prophet Onyamu Cox, who's been very instrumental with the U.S. Civil Society or UN Civil Society Working Group for People of African Descent. Go on, Prophet, you have the floor.
International Civil Society Working Group for the Permanent Forum of People of African
Thank
Descent.
you. Colonized.
And I'm glad the conversation is coming up because the Permanent Forum a couple of years ago had the AU and the 10 points in the Caribbean, and several of us talked about the fact that we were invisible. And I didn't get on here to talk about that. I'm going to say mine quickly, but someone did mention that our numbers and our economic power, we should not be fighting with the AU because ours is greater. We're not taking advantage of what we have to bring to the table and say, if we withhold ours, there would be an issue for AU because we have a lot of power. But anyway, I'm on here because these days, I'm pushing what I think is the ultimate answer, and that's spirituality and sacred sciences. I believe that the whole idea that these folks have been in charge for 400 years, that they came out of Africa with more than just what they call artifacts, and they came out with more than even people and gold. They came out with knowledge that they repackaged, repurposed, and allowed them to become dominant for 400 years. So the International Civil Society now has the Spirituality and Sacred Sciences Subcommittee, and so we're elevating that conversation. So I'm asking everybody who's doing this work every time, please include spirituality. Don't call it culture and healing, because there's some spiritual knowledge that these folks have turned into secret societies. It's not just about healing and culture. There are things that can happen from a spiritual invisible realm that we don't even have to keep begging people to accept us into their little party. So I'm just saying, I want to elevate that. I want to keep it out there as a title, as something, like you said, in terms of the word reparation, at least hear it, feel it, even if you don't, and we're not talking about religion, because those on the committee are from all Akan and Ifa and Christian and Islam and all that, but we're coming together not around packages and names. We're coming together around something a lot more powerful, and then we might be able to get together and have some unity. That's
all right. Thank you so very much. We're really at time, but if I don't see any more hands raised, I will say that just prior to the the June 17th to 19th, a week before, Reparation Education Project had an emergency civil society consultation. Did not have much information, but we knew that things were going on. And I see you're here, Nakia. I'll call on you in a moment. Globally, in the diaspora, UK, Caribbean, the Latin American states, and the like. And so we, with very little information, tried to gather people together to reflect, what people would want to see. And from rumblings that we had around the diaspora, there was a survey, kind of, what shall I call it? It was kind of like a tedious type of survey, that spoke more lofty ideals as opposed to specifics as to what we want to see right here in the United States. So we're going to be coming out with something specific to hear. And when I say we, whoever the collective we are, so that some of our views can get known. Let me call on Dr. Akil Kalfani, who I think was either one of the experts or had something to do with the this whole mechanism. So Akil, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you very much, my sister. And thank you for continuing to pull us all together. My name is Akil Kalfani, Dr. Akil Kalfani. I'm a professor of sociology and African studies at Essex County College, but I'm also a advisor. I'm an advisor on the African Union Committee of Expert on Reparations. So the meeting that was spoken about, that's coming up next week, another one in February. All of those meetings and bodies that we've been working on a framework for reparations, and that body is had been working with and had met with was in Ghana in February. We were in Ethiopia in December. And we've been. This body is a statutory body from the African Union, and I think that when we look at the work that we're talking about and not having representation, that we as CPWA mentioned, we've been pushing. Many of us have been meeting for years to pull the African diaspora together. For the 6th region, and I like the idea, and I'll take back to our next meeting. Some of the things that folks have mentioned. Folks have sent me things that we can have representation and discussions, and through my presence, we do have a direct voice on that body. So by sitting on that body, I'm of the mindset that whatever it is that we want directly to be heard by the African Union, that's what I'm bringing to the table. And we also have that the things that are being, one of the things that's being developed in the framework is that first of all, the meeting that you had in Ghana and the ones prior to that, someone, I don't remember who mentioned it, but these are all mandates from the African Union, and these are going to be taken back to the African Union, and then they're going to have their meetings and discussions on it. So the point is that our body was folks from our legal representatives there, and folks from the body that I sit on, and I think that we have there's enough push to make our voices heard in a different way internally. And every time that I'm at a meeting, that I bring that up. And then also, Dr. Beckles, we had a meeting with CARICOM last week, or maybe it was the week before now, week before. And our joint meeting with CARICOM, Dr. Beckles clearly made the point about having folks from the U.S. Represented, and so that there's even folks in the Caribbean are talking about that kind of representation. The challenge, one of the things that we talked about and continue to think about with the sixth region is that, the sixth region isn't just the African American population. So sometimes we think that when we talk about sixth region, we're just talking about folks in the U.S. But there's lots of folks vying for that, and that's part of the challenge that has been happening. And there's been different groups that have met and have had elections. It's just that that there's still other folks who feel not represented by those bodies. And so the challenge is, who is the voice? And I think that the ways that we can look at that is that that I sit there even while we're working on getting an elected voice together and working on stuff. I think we should use that we have direct access and take full advantage of that.
So, Dr. Kalfani, thank you so very much for that. Well, we're about to come to a close. I see New York Assemblywoman Michelle Solange in the participant audience. I don't know if she wants to say a few words before we close. And while she's thinking about whether she wants to say a few words, let me just state that that we're in that document, okay, we did have some type of an impact, I'm saying, because there were a number of occasions throughout that outcome document that just talked about Africa and CARICOM. We made sure that it also included, and this was the wording of something along the lines that I came up with, those in the, I forgot what it was, those of us who live in settler colonial states, something along those lines. And that language did in fact get in there, and not once, on several different occasions, so that they would not forget that document was not supposed to just be about the African Union and CARICOM. Okay, but it also dealt with the sixth region. It also dealt with those of us in the diaspora whose governments do not speak for us. So I just wanted to mention that. Assemblywoman, did you want to say a few words? Or I'm going to turn it over to Senator Sanders to close us out.
No, someone else can close you out. I just appreciate everyone, and I look forward to solidarity.
Okay, great. Well, we're so glad that you joined, and thank you so much for all the legislative efforts that you've done in terms of ensuring that the New York bill did in fact pass, and that New York commission is currently in process. So, Senator Sanders, did you want to just kind of close us out? You're muted. You're muted.
The Assemblywoman has spoken well for us. I just put out two different things. Our family from Katrina have said, if it's about us, without us, it's not for us.
Right.
If it's about us, without us, it's not for us. And we have to look at that. And Mel King, one of our great leaders in Boston, made a book called From Access to Power. Access is when other people can take your issue into the room for you. And power is when you're in the room yourself. And we have to go from access to power. We have access now. We have to get power to speak and determine our own destiny, at least with our brothers and sisters in the continental African community. That's it. Get in touch with me. I'm stable.
I love that. From access to power, I just want to conclude with power to the people. Those at home and abroad. That's Africa for the Africans. Those
at home and abroad.
And abroad. Exactly. So thank you. This recording will be made available, as well as the previous recording to the meeting that happened a week before the event. So again, thank you, everyone. And be tuned. Other organizations will be doing very in-depth analytical analyses. This was just an initial report back. So again, thank you. Take full use of the chat. There's a lot of valuable gems in there, and the chat will be made available as well. All right.
You did a great job. Thank you.
It's all good.
Thank you, Nkechi.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to end now.
Blessings.
Thank you, Nkechi.
Bye-bye.
You may want to stay live so people can read the chat.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I'm going to stay live for a moment, but no one talk. Just look at the chat. We're really officially closed. I'm going to turn my camera off so I can look at the chat myself. Stop video. There we go.
You can save your chat to Finder.
Right, those three dots. But I always keep a record of the chat and send it out with the recording. But I like to kind of look at the chat live, I guess you could say, because it doesn't look the same when it's recorded. And sign on to that civil society sign-on letter in support of the gravest crime against humanity. That link is in there from the Reparation Education Project.
Gretchen, are you still on? Is Gretchen still on?
I'm not sure. Let me see. There were over 60 people on, and now there are 27, so she might be gone.
Okay.
We appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate everyone for coming on at such late notice, and I appreciate all of the folk who were present in Accra coming on board and sharing their reflections. That was very, very strong. Okay, I'm gonna close it off now. Peace and blessings all. Free to land.
Peace and blessings.
By any means.
Prosperity.